Hi, it's Mark Bossert from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with David Fairbairn of Fairbairn Inspections in Vancouver, BC, and we're going to be answering some of the common questions that people have about home inspections this morning. How are you doing, David?
Hey, I'm good, Mark. How you doing today?
Good. So, what's included in a home inspection?
Well, Mark, there's a set of standards that home inspectors have to use that is considered the bare minimum that a home inspector can look at during the inspection. And these are considered a bare minimum, but they typically include the major systems of the house. So you're looking at your structure, your plumbing, your roof, your heating, ventilation, electrical, things like this. So that's the major systems of the property, and almost any home inspector is going to do that. And in BC, you have to abide by those standards, but you can also go above and beyond those. So, for instance, one of the things that home inspectors are actually not required to inspect is appliances, and they're not required to use any specific tools. They're not required to do moisture testing, or in fact, as far as I know, they're not even required to have a plug tester, which I find funny. But that's the bare minimum of what's included in a home inspection. Now, our home inspection includes more than that, but we've got the basic major systems of the property. We're going to give you an overview of the condition of the building. We're also going to give you a little bit more than that.
So, do you inspect everything? Like, what about, you know, fences or big one for me, and I think for anybody in Vancouver area is drainage because we get a lot of rain here. Uh, Outbuildings, all that sort of stuff. Do you look
Yeah.
at all those as well?
Yeah, no, interesting you should ask that because the standards actually say that home inspectors are not required to look at fences, sheds, any sort of drainage whatsoever, aside from the maybe 3 inches of drain tile sticking up from the garden bed. So what we're doing with our home inspections is we're obviously we're limited by what we can see, but we're going to give you an overview of the whole property. So what I like to do is during a home inspection, I'll show up and I'll walk the entire property, corner to corner. And this is for a number of reasons. If you have a lot, maybe it's predominantly flat lot, but there's a slope on one side of it, and it may, direct water onto one side of the home, or you may get pooling in your yard. You might have a big, this is actually one I find a lot, is where there's a big retaining wall at the back of the property that you need to sort of go way back and hack through the bushes and take a look. And you've got sometimes problems with the retaining wall, and that can be really expensive. A retaining wall right now, to rebuild a concrete retaining wall, is between $25 to $35 a square foot. So it's thousands of dollars to actually rebuild a retaining wall. You can't really shift them back into place. You have to tear them out and rebuild them. So it can actually be a huge item. So retaining walls, that's a big one. Inspecting drainage. What I like to do is actually open up manhole covers if I can find them, pop them open, have a look, and we can actually see a little bit of our perimeter drainage, storm drainage system, right? There's been a couple times I've opened up an inspection chamber in the front yard. Those turquoise, lids you see in the front yard. There's one red one, there's one turquoise one. Never open the red one because that's sewage, and the turquoise one is rainwater. So if you ever see a red one, you're probably not going to want to touch it. But the green one, you can pop it open, you have a look, and you can see. There's been a couple times you can actually see it backing up from the connection, the lateral to the city. So these are a few of the things that you just be curious, and that's what we're doing. Is I'm a curious guy. We go around the property, we take a look at everything we can. If the shed's about to fall over, I saw a shed in Coquitlam the other day. The shed was, leaning so much that the door wouldn't open anymore. The door was actually seized. So that's going to be a safety hazard if you move in and start using that shed. It's going to fall over. So this is kind of basic stuff that it's not technically required, but it's going to greatly impact your use of the property. So all inspections that we do include these areas.
So what about in the um, ceiling, or above the ceiling, in the attic area or whatever you want to call it, in that space there? I know that if you just stick your head up, you see one view, and if you actually walk on the framing members and work your way around, you might see a whole different picture, like junction boxes buried in the ceiling and where nobody's ever going to find them, and all
That's
kinds
right.
of
Yeah.
interesting things, or different kinds of wiring, aluminum, or all kinds of old wiring, because we have some old houses in Vancouver area,
Yeah,
merged with new wiring because part of the house was renovated, or
that's usually the case. Yeah, it's hey, this panel looks great, and all of a sudden you go up to the attic and it's tied into a bunch of knob and tube using electrical tape. Yeah, I know. That's a really good point. And the home inspectors are required to look at the attic. It doesn't say how. So I could technically open up an attic hatch, poke my head in there, shine a flashlight around, and come back down in 3 seconds, and that would meet the requirements of what I'm supposed to do. But that's not good enough. I always, if we can get into the attic, if I can fit myself into the attic, it's unless it's a Vancouver special. Now, Vancouver special, they have incredibly low attics. They're almost universally impossible to get into. But for a standard house, if you can get into the attic, like you're saying, there's a lot of stuff you can find up there. One of the really common problems I find in attics is somebody's gone and put in recessed lighting, and they'll put in like pot lights all over the upstairs ceiling, and they're really proud of themselves, but they put in a style of pot light that can't be in contact with insulation, and the manufacturer specifically says that, and it's called a non-IC rated light, insulation contact light. And this kind of fixture, you would have to actually build a small box around it or have the insulation not touching it. That can be a big job. So that's a pretty common mistake, and you wouldn't know unless you actually went into the attic or you pulled the pot lights down from below, which I'm probably not going to start doing.
So what about what don't you inspect?
The only thing there's a few things that are difficult for us to inspect. Anything that's not visible, right? So we have to remember it's a visual inspection. So anything that we can't see. So if I walk into a room and it's packed with storage items, I may not be able to inspect that room. So that ties in with how to prepare for the home inspection. You're going to want to, if you have an inspection equipment, you're going to want to make sure that they haven't taken one of the basement rooms and filled it with storage items because they're moving. It's packed with boxes. Now, I'll give it a shot. I'll try to pull back a box and look behind it if we can, or if we can reasonably move some items out of the way. But it's if we can get everything visible, then I can inspect more of the property. So that's one of the big things that I can't inspect is anything that's not visible. Locked doors. If you've got we've had a couple mystery rooms this month where it's locked, nobody knows where it goes, and I have to say, I can't get in there. I don't know. Attics, if they've got shelving installed over top of the attic hatch, then I can't go up to the attic. So we just want to make sure that we have access to all the areas. And one more thing I don't inspect is the security system of the house. We're finding a lot of these newer homes that come with installed security systems, but they don't. Sometimes you're halfway there. Maybe you don't have your sensors in. Maybe you don't have your control box. So there's a few different steps to get a security system up and running, and I leave that up to the security experts. So that's one thing I don't inspect, and I also don't want to set off any alarms while I'm in home. Otherwise, I get a call from the homeowner asking why the fire truck was there this afternoon. So these are the kind of things that but everything that I can see that we can reasonably test is on there. We can even sometimes if you go to a garage, you can see the central vac. It'll have an on-off switch. You can actually test that out. If the buyer wants to test anything out specifically, let me know. I've even tested a stereo system for them. One time, it was included with the house. It was a nice one too. We had some tunes going through there. So.
So what about you mentioned the stuff you can see. Now you do have some tools you can use that can look behind the walls, at least on an infrared basis.
That's right. Yeah. Of course, what we're saying is that tools aren't really specified, but I have a great collection of tools, and I constantly get people asking about what I'm using. And some of these tools are just really cutting edge, and they're great for determining if there's a hidden problem that we would never find otherwise. So, for instance, a combustible gas leak detector. It's basically a gas sniffer, and you can use it on your gas meter. You can use it on your furnace gas piping. You can use it on your almost anywhere you have gas piping in home. You can actually test the joints and see if there's a pinhole leak. And sometimes it's so fine that it takes a lot of looking before the repairman can actually determine where it is. So I actually have to circle it for them and say, actually, this joint needs to be resealed. And so that's a big safety thing. There's a moisture meter, a pretty standard home inspector kit to have a moisture meter with you. Determine if there's moisture behind the shower walls or if there's some wet drywall. And then, of course, the thermal camera. thermal camera is going to give you that image of, sometimes you can see the studs, wet insulation. You can find hidden problems with that. Everything, all my tools, I'm going to include that with the standard home inspection. The only difference is that the thermal camera, if you'd like a whole building scan done, we offer a thermal imaging package, which depends on the size of the property, but it's very affordable.
Awesome. Sounds pretty thorough, and from what you keep finding and surprising us with on your posts, it's thorough, which is great. And I appreciate, I'm kind of a bit anal about this. I just had my drain scoped, actually.
Excellent. How did they look?
They look great, yeah. Very clean, yeah. So.
That's good. You're one of the few that actually will do it. I've actually moved into, or I've gone in houses, the owner's been there for 30 years, and they're like, what are perimeter drains?
Yeah.
They literally had no idea, right? And you're going, okay, well, this is the old tile from the 80s. It's, it's corrugated. How much junk is in that drain tile, right? You're a good homeowner, and I look forward to inspecting your home one day.
All right, thanks, David. It's been great talking with you. We've been talking with David Fairbairn from fairbairninspections.com in Vancouver. Give him a call, 604-395-2795. Buy a house you can trust. Give David a call. He'll look after you. 604-395-2795. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Mark.